Hello and welcome to my channel English Storyline. Today's story in this episode will take you deep into the life of Xi Jinping, one of the most powerful and controversial leaders in the world. His story is not just about politics. It's a journey filled with struggles, survival, power, and control. Whether you admire him or question his leadership, one thing is certain: Xi Jinping's influence is massive, and his decisions shape the world we live in today. But how did he get here? How did a young boy born into a revolutionary family rise to control the world's second-largest economy? What challenges did he face? And why do so many people see him as both a strong leader and a feared dictator? Today, we will uncover every detail of his life, from his childhood struggles to his political rise and his iron grip on China. We will also explore why he is one of the most controversial leaders of our time. And the best part? This story will not only give you deep knowledge about Xi Jinping, but will also help improve your English. As you listen to this engaging story, you will learn new words, sentence structures, and how to express complex ideas in simple English. So, if you're a beginner in English, don't worry. I will explain everything in an easy and interesting way. So sit back, relax, and get ready for a powerful and eye-opening story. Part 1. Early life and family background. To understand Xi Jinping, we must first understand where he came from. His childhood was not like a normal child's. He was born into a life of privilege, but soon everything changed, and his life became a story of pain, survival, and political struggle. Xi Jinping was born on June 15, 1953, in Beijing, China. His father, Xi Zhongxun, was not an ordinary man. He was a revolutionary hero who fought alongside Mao Zedong, the founder of modern China. His mother, Qi Xin, was also involved in politics. At first, Xi Jinping's family was wealthy and powerful. His father was a high-ranking official in the Communist Party of China, CPC, and this gave Xi a privileged life. He grew up in Zhongnanhai, a special area in Beijing where China's top leaders lived. His childhood was filled with servants, good food, and private schools. Everything seemed perfect. But in politics, power never lasts forever. In 1962, when Xi Jinping was just 9 years old, his world collapsed. His father, Xi Zhongxun, was accused of treason and removed from power by Mao Zedong's government. In China, when a politician falls, their entire family suffers. Xi's father was sent to prison, and suddenly the family lost everything: their power, their money, and their home. Xi Jinping, once a privileged boy, became the son of a disgraced politician. But things got even worse. In 1966, China entered the Cultural Revolution, a period of chaos where Mao Zedong encouraged young people to attack anyone who was considered anti-communist. This included teachers, intellectuals, and the families of fallen politicians like Xi Jinping's. At the age of 13, Xi Jinping saw his family humiliated and attacked in public. His home was raided, his mother was forced to denounce his father, and his elder sister couldn't handle the pressure and took her own life. But the worst part? Xi Jinping himself was labeled an enemy of the Communist Party because of his family's fall from power. At the age of 15, Xi Jinping was sent to the countryside as part of Mao's policy called the Down to the Countryside movement. This policy forced educated city kids to live and work in rural areas so they could learn the hard life of peasants. For the next 7 years, Xi Jinping lived in a poor village called Liangjiahe in Shanxi province. Imagine this, a dot. The boy who once lived in luxury now had to sleep in a cave, work in the fields, and struggle for food. His life was extremely hard. He woke up at sunrise and worked in the fields all day. He carried heavy loads of wheat and dug ditches for irrigation. He slept in a small, dark cave with no electricity. He suffered from lice, extreme cold, and hunger. During this time, Xi Jinping learned how to survive. He later said, "The hardships of rural life gave me strong discipline and shaped who I am today." But despite the suffering, Xi Jinping never gave up. While others cried and waited for the government to rescue them, he adapted to the tough life and made himself stronger. Xi Jinping knew one thing. If he wanted to escape poverty, he had to return to politics. But it wasn't easy. His father was still seen as a traitor, and no university or political organization wanted to accept him. So he tried to join the Communist Party of China, CPC, and guess what? He was rejected 7 times. Yes, 7 times. The Communist Party rejected his application because of his father's past. But Xi Jinping didn't quit. He kept applying again and again until finally, in 1974, at the age of 21, he was accepted into the Communist Party. This was a huge moment in his life. From being a peasant, he had now entered the world of power. But this was only the beginning. Part 2. Xi Jinping's rise in politics, from nobody to power. After spending 7 years in the countryside in Liangjiahe, Xi Jinping was determined to become an important politician. But he knew one thing. In China's Communist Party, you can't rise quickly unless you prove your loyalty and patience. So instead of rushing to the top, he started from a very low-level government job. In 1979, he got his first real job as a personal secretary to Geng Biao, a senior military official in Beijing. At this time, China was not yet a superpower. The country was still recovering from the Cultural Revolution, and many leaders were trying to rebuild the economy and the military. Even though being a secretary might sound small, it was an important learning experience for Xi. He got the chance to meet important people in the government, observe military decisions, and learn the inner workings of power. However, Xi Jinping didn't want to stay as a secretary forever. He wanted to build his own political career. So in 1982, he requested a transfer to a small rural province called Hebei, where he became the deputy party secretary of Zhengding County. Many people in Beijing were shocked. Why would someone leave the capital city to work in a small, poor area? But Xi Jinping was playing the long game. He knew that the Communist Party valued leaders who had experience working in rural areas. He wanted to show that he could work at the lowest levels of government before rising to the top. In Hebei, Xi Jinping worked day and night. He visited farmers, promoted economic projects, and built a reputation as a hard-working and humble leader. He was slowly proving himself to the Communist Party, but this was just the beginning of his strategy. After gaining experience in Hebei, Xi Jinping moved to Fujian province in 1985. This was a major turning point because Fujian was located near Taiwan and was becoming a key area for China's economic reforms. In 1987, Xi Jinping married Peng Liyuan, a famous singer in China. 5 years later, in 1992, they had a daughter, Xi Mingzi, who later studied at Harvard University under a pseudonym to protect her privacy. For the next 17 years, Xi Jinping held various government positions in Fujian, including vice mayor of Xiamen, 1985 to 1988, and deputy secretary of Fujian, 1995. From 2000 to 2002, Xi Jinping served as the governor of Fujian. During this time, China was rapidly modernizing, and Fujian was one of the fastest-growing regions. Xi Jinping focused on economic development, attracting foreign investment, and improving infrastructure. More importantly, he built strong connections with China's business and political elite. He learned how to balance economic growth with party loyalty, a skill that would later help him rise to the top. However, his time in Fujian was not without controversies. During the 1990s, many Chinese government officials were involved in corruption, accepting bribes, helping businesses in exchange for money, and using government funds for personal gain. In Fujian, a major scandal broke out in the late 1990s involving a smuggling operation worth $6 billion. Many government officials were caught and punished, but Xi Jinping remained untouched. Some believe he was too careful and avoided corruption, while others think he knew how to protect himself from political enemies. Either way, this scandal did not stop his rise. In fact, his reputation as a clean and disciplined leader helped him get promoted. By 2002, he was ready for the next big step in his career, a move that would bring him one step closer to ruling China. In 2002, Xi Jinping was transferred to Zhejiang province, one of China's most economically important regions. This was a major test for him. If he succeeded here, he would be considered for national leadership. As the party secretary of Zhejiang, he focused on encouraging private businesses, reducing government corruption, improving infrastructure, and attracting foreign investment. Zhejiang was already a rich province, but Xi Jinping made it even stronger. His policies helped businesses grow, and his reputation as a no-nonsense leader continued to rise. But just as Xi Jinping was solidifying his power, a major political event happened in Beijing, one that would change his life forever. In 2007, a political shakeup happened in China. The Communist Party was preparing for the next big leadership transition. President Hu Jintao was stepping down, and China needed a new leader. Two main figures were being considered. 1. Li Keqiang, the candidate supported by Hu Jintao. 2. Xi Jinping, a surprise choice backed by powerful political families. At the last moment, the party chose Xi Jinping as the next leader of China. Why? Because unlike other politicians, Xi Jinping had a strong political background. His father was a revolutionary hero. Experience working in multiple provinces. A clean image with no direct corruption scandals. Support from China's most powerful families. In 2007, Xi Jinping was promoted to Vice President of China. This meant that in just 5 years, he would take full control of the country. But even though he had won the leadership battle, his biggest challenge was yet to come: how to maintain absolute power once he became president. Part 3. Xi Jinping's road to absolute power. Becoming China's supreme leader. Being vice president was not enough. He wanted total power. When Xi Jinping became vice president in 2007, many people believed he would be just another leader, a safe and moderate politician who wouldn't change much. But behind the scenes, Xi Jinping was carefully preparing for his rise to absolute power. At that time, China was ruled by a group of powerful leaders. No single person had full control. Decisions were made collectively by a group of high-ranking politicians called the Politburo Standing Committee. Xi Jinping knew that if he wanted complete control, he had to eliminate all his political rivals, one by one. 1. Studying his opponents before making any move. Xi Jinping spent years studying his enemies. He wanted to know who was corrupt, who had scandals, who had too much power, and who was loyal to him. He acted humble and quiet, pretending to be a leader who didn't want trouble, but inside, he was planning a massive political attack. In 2012, just 1 year before Xi Jinping was supposed to become China's new president, a shocking scandal changed everything. A powerful politician named Bo Xilai, who was also trying to become China's next leader, was caught in a massive corruption and murder scandal. Bo Xilai's wife, Gu Kailai, was accused of murdering a British businessman named Neil Haywood. The scandal was huge. It exposed deep corruption inside China's leadership. Xi Jinping saw this as his perfect opportunity. Using this scandal, he convinced China's leaders that corruption was a serious problem and that he was the only one who could clean up the system. This made him look like an honest leader, a man who could bring discipline back to the Communist Party. In November 2012, Xi Jinping officially became China's new president. But now that he had power, he faced one big problem: how to keep it forever. The anti-corruption campaign, a political purge. As soon as Xi Jinping became president, he launched one of the biggest political purges in modern history. He called it the anti-corruption campaign, but in reality, it was a way to remove his enemies. How did the purge work? Step 1. Accuse a powerful politician of corruption. Step 2. Launch an investigation, but the result was already decided. Step 3. Arrest them, remove them from power, or even sentence them to death. This campaign was massive. Over 1.5 million government officials were investigated. Many top leaders disappeared overnight. Some were sent to prison, while others were never seen again. Xi Jinping didn't stop at politicians. He also purged generals in the military, CEOs of major companies, and even celebrities. By 2014, he had eliminated almost all of his political enemies. Now, there was no one left to challenge him. Building a personality cult. But just removing enemies wasn't enough. He needed to make sure no one would ever challenge him again. To secure his power, Xi Jinping took an unusual step. He started building a personality cult, just like Mao Zedong did in the past. This meant that the government began promoting Xi Jinping as the greatest leader. Books about his wisdom were published. School children were made to memorize his quotes. His face was placed on giant posters everywhere. He also introduced a new political philosophy called Xi Jinping thought, which became mandatory learning in schools and government offices. This was a clear message. Xi Jinping was no longer just a leader, he was becoming a supreme ruler. Removing the term limit, the final step to absolute power. Then came his biggest and most controversial move. In 2018, Xi Jinping did something that no leader had done since Mao Zedong. He removed the two-term limit for the Chinese presidency. Before this, every Chinese president had to step down after 2 terms, 10 years total. But Xi Jinping changed the constitution, allowing him to stay in power for life. This was a huge moment in Chinese history. For many people, it confirmed their biggest fear. Xi Jinping was not just a president anymore. He was becoming a dictator. This decision made him one of the most powerful leaders in the world, but it also made him one of the most controversial figures in modern history. Part 4. Xi Jinping and the Global Power Struggle. Controlling China and challenging the West, but having absolute power inside. China's global ambitions. Challenging the West, China was not enough. Now Xi Jinping wanted China to become the most powerful country in the world. That meant challenging the West, especially the United States. For years, the United States was the most powerful country in the world. It had the strongest economy, the biggest military, the lead in technology. But Xi Jinping wanted China to replace the U.S. as the world's #1 superpower. So he focused on 3 key strategies. 1. Expanding China's economy. 2. Strengthening China's military. 3. Controlling technology and information. 1. Expanding China's economy. The Belt and Road Initiative. Xi Jinping knew that money equals power. If China wanted to dominate the world, it needed to control global trade. So, in 2013, he launched the Belt and Road Initiative, BRI, the biggest international infrastructure project in history. China gave billions of dollars in loans to other countries. It built highways, railways, ports, and airports across Asia, Africa, and Europe. It helped poor countries, but also trapped them in debt, making them dependent on China. By 2020, over 140 countries had joined this project. Some people called it a great investment for the future. Others called it a way for China to secretly take control of the world. But one thing was clear. Xi Jinping had made China the center of global trade. 2. Strengthening China's military. The rise of a superpower army. Xi Jinping knew that money alone wasn't enough. China also needed a powerful military. He expanded China's army, making it the biggest in the world. He developed hypersonic missiles, which could travel faster than sound. He built artificial islands in the South China Sea and turned them into military bases. This was a direct challenge to the United States and its allies. Countries like Japan, India, and the Philippines became nervous. They saw China's military expansion as a threat, and Xi Jinping made one thing clear: China will take back Taiwan, even if it means war. This increased tensions with the U.S., which had always supported Taiwan's independence. Many experts began warning that a future war between the U.S. and China was becoming more and more possible. 3. Controlling technology. The Great Firewall and total surveillance. Xi Jinping understood that information equals power. If he controlled the internet, he could control what people think. If he controlled technology, he could control the world's future. The Great Firewall. Censorship at the highest level. He expanded China's censorship system, known as the Great Firewall. Websites like Google, Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, and Instagram were completely banned in China. Only government-approved information was allowed. People who criticized the government online were arrested or disappeared. The world's most advanced surveillance system. But he didn't stop there. He also created the most advanced surveillance system in history. Millions of CCTV cameras were installed across China. Facial recognition. I was used to track people everywhere they went. A social credit system was introduced. If you followed government rules, you got rewards. If you criticized the government, you got punished. For many, China was starting to look like a real-life Big Brother state, just like in George Orwell's novel, 1984. Supporters said it kept China safe and stable. Critics said it was the most advanced dictatorship in the world. But the biggest test of Xi Jinping's leadership was about to come: COVID-19. The COVID-19 pandemic, a global crisis, begins. In late 2019, a mysterious virus was discovered in Wuhan, China. At first, the Chinese government tried to hide the outbreak. Doctors who spoke about the virus were silenced. Journalists who reported on it disappeared. China refused to give full information to the World Health Organization, WHO. What happened next? The COVID-19 pandemic would become one of the biggest global crises in history, and it would change the world forever. Xi Jinping's response to the crisis would define China's role in global politics for years to come. Part 5. Xi Jinping, Facing Rebellion, Economic Crisis, and the Fight to Stay in Power. When the COVID-19 pandemic began, most countries initially implemented strict lockdowns but later reopened their economies, learning to live with the virus. However, Xi Jinping refused to do the same. Instead, he introduced the zero-COVID policy, which became the strictest lockdown system in the world. Entire cities were locked down for months, even if only a few cases were detected. People were trapped in their homes without enough food or medical help. If someone tested positive, They were forcibly taken to government quarantine centers. Drones and robot dogs patrolled the streets, warning people to stay inside. For 2 years, the Chinese people suffered under extreme policies. Businesses closed. Millions lost their jobs. Frustration and anger grew among the public. Then, the breaking point came. The White Paper protests, a rare rebellion. In November 2022, a tragedy in Urumqi, Xinjiang sparked nationwide outrage. A fire broke out in an apartment building, and 10 people burned to death because China's lockdown restrictions had blocked the doors and exits. This was the final straw. Thousands of people poured into the streets. They held blank sheets of white paper, a symbol of protest against Xi Jinping's censorship. This movement, known as the White Paper protests, was shocking because Chinese people rarely protest against the government. Some protesters even called for Xi Jinping to step down, a crime punishable by life in prison. The protests spread across major cities like Beijing, Shanghai, Guangzhou, and more. For the first time, Xi Jinping looked vulnerable. How did he respond? At first, he ignored the protests, hoping they would die out. But then, he made a shocking decision. He suddenly ended the zero-COVID policy. This was highly unusual. Xi Jinping never changes his mind. But this time, he was forced to retreat because he knew the protests could grow into something bigger. China's economic miracle coming to an end? For decades, China's economy was growing at an unbelievable speed. Massive factories, huge infrastructure projects, billions of dollars in trade, millions of people lifted out of poverty. China became the second largest economy in the world. But by 2023, everything was starting to slow down. People began to ask, was China's economic miracle coming to an end? The real estate crisis. China's ghost cities. For years, China's real estate market was booming. Developers built thousands of new apartment buildings. Investors bought properties, thinking prices would always go up. Banks gave out billions in loans. But there was one big problem. Most of these buildings were never actually used. Millions of apartments sat empty, creating China's infamous ghost cities. People couldn't afford to buy homes. Developers ran out of money. China's economic problems were becoming too big to ignore. What happens next? With a weakened economy, rising public anger, and growing global tensions, Xi Jinping faces his greatest challenge yet. Will he be able to maintain total control? Or will China's unstoppable rise finally start to crack? China's economic crisis and Xi Jinping's struggle for power. The real estate collapse, a nation's wealth in ruins. By 2023, China's real estate market, once a pillar of economic growth, was falling apart. For years, companies like Evergrande, one of China's largest property developers, borrowed billions to build massive housing projects. However, there was a major problem. Millions of apartments sat empty. People simply couldn't afford them. Developers ran out of money, leaving projects unfinished. Banks were overloaded with bad loans, creating a financial crisis. When Evergrande collapsed, It sent shockwaves through China's economy. Millions lost their life savings. Foreign investors pulled their money out of China. The economy began to crash. For Xi Jinping, this was a disaster. The real estate market was one of China's key economic drivers, and now it was on the verge of total collapse. China's youth unemployment crisis, a lost generation. For years, Chinese students were told, "Study hard, go to university, and you will have a bright future." But by 2023, the opposite happened. Millions of young people couldn't find jobs. Over 20% of Chinese youth were unemployed, the highest rate in history. Even graduates with university degrees struggled to find basic jobs. Many gave up on their dreams, returning to farming or manual labor. This was a huge embarrassment for Xi Jinping. His government had promised prosperity, but now the younger generation was losing hope. More young people began criticizing the government, blaming Xi's strict policies for their struggles. The situation was getting worse, not better. Internal cracks, power struggles. Inside the Communist Party. For years, Xi Jinping ruled with fear. Nobody dared to challenge him. But by 2023, cracks began to appear inside the Communist Party. Some high-ranking leaders were secretly unhappy with Xi's extreme policies. They blamed him for the economic downturn and growing unrest. There were rumors of power struggles happening behind closed doors. Then came a mysterious disappearance that shook China. The vanishing of Defense Minister Li Shangfu in 2023. Li Shangfu, a top military official and close ally of Xi Jinping, suddenly disappeared. The government gave no explanation. Officials refused to talk about it. Speculation grew. Was this a purge, a coup attempt, a political struggle? For the first time, Xi Jinping's grip on power seemed uncertain. China versus the United States. The new Cold War. After securing absolute power inside China, Xi Jinping turned his focus outward. His goal was clear: to make China the world's strongest superpower. But this was not an easy task. The United States was already the dominant global power. Tensions between the two nations grew rapidly. Since China couldn't defeat the U.S. militarily, Xi chose a different battlefield: an economic and technological war. 1. The Trade War. In 2018, U.S. President Donald Trump imposed heavy tariffs on Chinese products. Xi retaliated, imposing tariffs on American goods. The two largest economies in the world were now in direct economic conflict. The Huawei controversy. The U.S. accused Huawei, a Chinese tech giant, of spying for the Chinese government. Huawei was banned, and many Western countries followed suit. This damaged China's tech industry and slowed its global ambitions. The chip war. China relies on advanced computer chips from the U.S. In response, the U.S. blocked exports, making it difficult for China to advance its AI and tech industries. The TikTok controversy. Western governments feared that TikTok, a Chinese-owned app, was stealing user data. The US threatened to ban it, but China refused to give up control. Xi Jinping was now fighting multiple battles at once, but this was only the beginning. Taiwan, the rising risk of war. Taiwan became a flashpoint for global conflict. China considers Taiwan part of its territory. Taiwan sees itself as independent. The US supports Taiwan, selling it weapons and military technology. In response, Xi Jinping escalated military pressure. Chinese fighter jets flew near Taiwan almost daily. China's navy conducted large-scale war drills. Many feared that if China invaded Taiwan, it could trigger a global war with the US. Despite these risks, Xi remained determined to show the world that China was powerful and fearless. China's surveillance state, the most controlled society on Earth inside China, Xi Jinping built one of the most controlled societies in modern history. 1. The Great Firewall, Internet censorship. Google, Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, and Instagram are banned. The government strictly controls what people can see and say online. 2. A nation under surveillance. Millions of security cameras watch citizens 24/7. AI-powered facial recognition tracks people's movements. A social credit system rewards or punishes individuals based on their behavior. China was becoming a real-life Orwellian state where the government had total control over its people. What lies ahead for Xi Jinping and China? By 2024, China stood at a critical crossroads. The economy was slowing down. Youth unemployment was at record highs. Tensions with the US and Taiwan were escalating. Internal party struggles were emerging. For years, Xi Jinping appeared invincible, but now, cracks were beginning to show. The big question remains, can Xi Jinping maintain his grip on power? Or is China's unstoppable rise finally starting to break apart? Xi Jinping's final chapter, the future of China's most powerful leader. A nation under surveillance, total control through technology. Under Xi Jinping, China has become one of the most highly controlled societies in the world. 1. Facial recognition and social credit system. AI-powered cameras track people's movements in real time. The social credit system punishes critics of the government. If someone speaks out against Xi Jinping, their score drops, affecting travel restrictions, banned from flights and trains, loan denials, limited job opportunities. 2. Media censorship. No criticism allowed. Newspapers and TV channels cannot publish anything negative about Xi Jinping. The government controls all major media outlets. Social media posts critical of Xi are deleted instantly. 3. A leader who controls every aspect of life. Xi Jinping was no longer just a leader. He was controlling every part of Chinese society. Enemies within. The Communist Party divided. Despite his strong grip on power, not everyone in the Communist Party supported him. 1. Internal party tensions. Some high-ranking Communist Party officials believed he was making too many enemies. Corrupt officials turned against him when Xi began removing them from power. Secret factions started forming, waiting for the right moment to challenge his rule. The disappearance of billionaires. Rich businessmen feared Xi Jinping. Jack Ma, the billionaire founder of Alibaba, suddenly disappeared after criticizing government policies. Many believed Xi was eliminating anyone who opposed him. Xi claimed he was fighting corruption, but in reality, he was removing threats to his power. The final chapter. The future of Xi Jinping and China. Xi Jinping has led China through massive changes, but now new challenges threaten his leadership. 1. A more powerful, yet more controlled China. Strict government rules have frustrated young people. Universities are forced to follow Communist Party guidelines. Businesses have lost independence, with the government taking control. 2. Advanced technology, innovation versus control. China has become a global leader in artificial intelligence, AI, space research, robotics. But instead of using technology for freedom and progress, the government uses it for control. China has become a digital fortress where every citizen is watched. 3. Resistance begins. The people fight back. Despite strict censorship, small acts of resistance have started appearing. Young people secretly criticize the government online. Intellectuals question Xi's leadership. Frustration among the public continues to grow. Xi responded with force, mass arrests, harsher internet censorship, military crackdowns on dissent. But history has shown no leader can control people forever. China versus the world, gaining allies or becoming isolated. 1. The U.S.-China rivalry intensifies. The U.S. and China continue to battle over trade and technology. Many Western countries have blocked Chinese investments, fearing China's growing influence. 2. New alliances, China's global strategy. China has formed closer ties with Russia, Iran, and North Korea. This has challenged Western powers, but also isolated China from major global economies. How will history judge Xi Jinping? Xi Jinping has shaped China's future in ways that will be felt for generations. But the big question remains: will he be remembered as a visionary leader who made China stronger, or as a ruthless dictator who restricted freedom and isolated his nation? Only time will tell. What do you think? Is Xi Jinping leading China toward greatness or pushing it toward crisis? Will China continue rising as a superpower or face internal collapse? Let me know your thoughts in the comments. Like, share, and subscribe for more powerful insights into global politics.